Welcome to another edition of The Manual. He is the Professor Alton Woods. I am Chip Rice. And man, did you see?
Crazy weekend.
Did you see?
Championship Saturday.
Championship Saturday. So now there are 4.
Right, but I guess we got to bring Friday in too, because Friday night
was major.
Really the big.
Friday was major when USC and Utah went out there, and there were a lot of people in Ohio that were watching this game.
A lot, and Alabama.
Right? Yeah. And so you're looking at USC, and you're like, okay, it's right here for you on the plate. This is your opportunity. Lincoln Riley, get back in it. You know, big time
first year at USC.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And later,
and he Lincoln Riley'd.
Oh, no, don't say it.
You were supposed to beat Utah.
You were supposed to beat Utah.
Utah is a ranked team.
Yes.
Oh, and we sitting here talking about all that, but maybe we should pivot. Did you see Deion Sanders take the Colorado job?
Yeah, that's major there. That's major, and
So how do you feel about that?
There are a lot of people that had issues that I appreciated him starting at an HBCU since he didn't even attend one for his college career, and saying let's bring some
notoriety, attention, exposure, right?
To HBCUs, But then, they offered him some major money at Colorado.
Here's my challenge, and so I'm okay with it from a career arc perspective. Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, Deion Sanders wants to be the head coach of Florida State University. That is his dream job. It's a job he's an alum. He interviewed for that job before and didn't get it. That's what he wants.
So you think that's still on?
I absolutely believe that's the end game.
Okay.
But I think the challenge for HBCUs, for Jackson State more specifically, is I think they bought into the movement. So there was this movement that HBCUs deserve better, which we agree.
We do.
That HBCUs, when given a level playing field, can compete.
Right.
When I think we agree with that.
Right.
So then now, the next step in the movement is the leader of the movement goes to a 1 in 10 white school.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think if you just think of it purely on the arc of career, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. But when you understand, or at least pay attention to the underlying movement that was happening, it can feel a little off.
Right.
Like if he left and went to Ohio State, even though it's a similar jump in demographic, at least you get that.
Right.
But Colorado,
it's a top 4.
1 in 10.
Time.
Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado.
It has a very low recruiting base in state. So
right. So what you're telling them is, I'm Deion, and I can basically recruit to the point that to make you a major power again.
And then he follows it up by saying he's bringing 8 to 10 of his players with him. So now I'm taking the HBCU players to another program.
Right.
It's gonna be interesting to see where this thing goes from here.
Yeah, a lot of conversation there around that, and so. Congratulations to Deion.
Congrats,
as being an HBCU grad myself. Oh well.
I mean, it is what it is.
It's a university anyway, so it's there for my academic purposes and not necessarily for the athletic piece of it. The athletic piece of it is big, but
bring a lot of money though.
It does, but
which can help that academics too.
It could. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
But USC didn't make it. I'm sorry. Let me.
It don't matter how much money they had in here.
They didn't make it.
They didn't want to tackle.
No.
That was horrible. I'm like,
and TCU better be lucky there was not another one-loss team right behind them.
Yeah.
And because
Kansas State gave them all
the work they wanted. That's right.
It's another edition of The Manual. So we're here talk a little bit about football, guy stuff. And over the weekend, I was looking on social media, and I saw that it was the Alphaversary.
It was Founders Day yesterday, December 4th. That's right.
For the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
That's right. It's not
considered to be the initial Black Greek fraternity
organization. Yep.
So tell me a little bit about that. Give us people some insight in case they don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the rise of fraternities, Black fraternities and sororities are early 1900s, 1906 for Alpha Phi Alpha, and then across the next several years, several others came along. And it's interesting because, we get into all of these conversations around the Qs do this, the Kappas do this, the Alphas do that. But to be honest with you, all of these groups were born out of a necessity. Right. At the time, right? A time when access to academics and social impacts were very limited to African Americans. And so these organizations were born, in some cases, on predominantly white campuses, as is the case with Alpha Phi Alpha at Cornell University, some cases at HBCUs as well. But fundamentally to really address the need of a young African American population to commune and to connect in this academic space and in this social service space around brotherhood and sisterhood. So,
right, because it was not made available to Black students on these campuses.
No, not at all. And I even think of my college experience being at a PWI, right? We were the only chartered Black fraternity on campus.
Oh, wow.
Right? So thousands of students overall, and, the only Black fraternity. Now, there is white fraternities all up and down, fraternity row. But
it sparks for me an interesting conversation, which kind of goes even to the conversation we were having about Dion going to Colorado. That in many of the predominantly white institutions, they want the Black athlete because it is an extreme money maker for them. But they don't always buy into the Black culture on their campuses. Absolutely. And I think that's where HBCUs are amazing because they are institutions of higher learning, but they also understand that there's a culture here.
That's right.
And so you get to be involved and embrace that culture your entire college career. Whereas some of these guys, they're coming from non-mixed neighborhoods, and they're coming from from just Black places, and you insert them into this environment, but you don't give them a whole lot about their particular culture.
Correct.
I think it is absolutely ridiculous now. So I'm jumping on a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, let's do it.
But now,
because you made me remember something I want to share too.
I thought that. So when I started hearing things like critical race theory, I'm saying, okay, what is that? And why are people so upset about it? But then, when you don't tell the whole truth,
correct,
you keep people from understanding where they were, where they are now, and where they should go.
Yeah.
And so now you don't want to tell children about the full history of this country and how they treated not just Black people. So it was Black people that were enslaved, Asian people,
Native Americans.
We go back to the Native Americans, and so you got to tell the whole story, and you can't get that in most cases culturally on campuses that are predominantly white because they don't want to talk about it because it's not really a part of the demise of their culture.
So interestingly enough, and I had a very unique seat in this process, so I pledged at the Rho Iota chapter, which is Tulane University in New Orleans. And the chapter was chartered in 1989. I pledged in 1990.
Wow.
So we were actually the first line, spring 90, under that charter.
Wow.
The other alphas who were on campus were initiated into a different chapter, and then they chartered the Tulane chapter. Okay. So we were at the beginning of the history of this chapter. Okay. So over Thanksgiving, I was home in New Orleans and had lunch with some frat brothers, including one of the charter members.
Wow.
Okay. And we just kind of reminiscing, as you might imagine, but it also took us back to the formation of the chapter. And so this is this is the part that I'll bring up, and I think sometimes our audience doesn't really understand this. So this is 1989, which depending on your age could feel super long ago, but the reality is, what's that, 33 years ago, right? And so in 1989, when there were meetings at Tulane University around establishing Alpha Phi Alpha on campus, one of the administrators, and I won't say any names, but one of the administrators openly said in the meeting with members present that there will never be a minority fraternity at Tulane University.
Wow.
1989. 1989.
Wow.
Right.
Not 1929.
1989.
Wow.
And let me say that over the last few decades, there's a lady at Tulane University. Her name is Carolyn Barber. Mm-hmm. She works and leads the Office of Multicultural Affairs. I forget what at least she did when I was there. She's grown into probably a couple of different roles. Mm-hmm. She, and I don't want to say single-handedly, but she is at the forefront of a lot of the diversity activity at Tulane University, and was at the forefront when it wasn't a popular thing to do. Because ever since George Floyd situation, corporate America and everybody else is like, oh yeah, we got to be diverse and all that kind of stuff. We went to sleep one day saying there will never be a black fraternity. They woke up the next day saying we really have to embrace this. And so maybe there was an epiphany. The Holy Ghost maybe settled on some people overnight, or maybe just folks understood that they needed to work with it. But the point is, and so tying, and we'll talk about brotherhood in a second, but tying in the Dion situation, I also think, and I'll be honest, sometimes I look back and I have envy of the HBCU experience, because now that I'm older, I see a different value in it than what I saw before. Mm-hmm. Tulane is an awesome school, a fantastic school, dubbed in some cases as the Harvard of the South. So it was definitely a prestigious opportunity to go. Okay. And even today, best of my knowledge, Alpha Phi Alpha is still the only chartered fraternity, black fraternity at Tulane's campus.
Wow.
Right? Are there individual members of other organizations that maybe were initiated in other chapters? Absolutely. But the only chartered one, Alpha Phi Alpha. Wow. Roy Iota chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha.
Wow. Which is both amazing yet
sad at the same time. Absolutely.
It is sad. And once again, it's a situation where it's like, why would you want us to be a part of your school, but you not want us to have culture in this?
Absolutely.
If education is for the growth of everybody,
absolutely,
then you need to start embracing the culture of other people who are different from you.
Absolutely.
And wow.
But you have to view that as a necessary step to success.
Okay. Right.
If you think that if you think in a vacuum with no different people we can make it work, mm-hmm. then you won't subscribe to that theory.
Which is the problem of majority.
Correct.
Majority believes that we can keep on doing whatever it is that we're doing, and we don't need you.
And we don't need you, right? Wow. And so as we think about the origins of Alpha Phi Alpha, and frankly, many of the other Black Greek letter organizations, I have a personal perspective of being at a PWI that 12 months before I crossed said, we don't want you.
Wow.
Right? But due to the right level of influence by, like I mentioned, Carolyn Barber and other people mm-hmm. in and off campus within Alpha Phi Alpha, the university caved, for lack of a better phrase, and allowed us to charter.
Wow.
Right. So would I have even gone to school there if I'd known that ahead of time? Maybe not. Wow. But yet here we are. And so those organizations, and it created for us at Tulane University. And listen, the student body wasn't an issue, mm-hmm. right? But it did create, in most cases, but it did create an opportunity for us to create a community mm-hmm. and a brotherhood on a relatively large, not diverse cultural landscape mm-hmm. at Tulane, where we could come together with commonalities and be able to support each other.
Wow. And that's important. We weren't built to be alone.
No.
When God created us, he never created us to be alone.
He said it's not good.
Yep.
In fact, it wasn't just a neutral opinion.
Right.
He said it is not good for man to be alone.
Right. Not by choice. He's saying, okay, I'm telling y'all that you are better when you're together. And so, when I thought about the Alphaversary, I thought about the brotherhood and the camaraderie mm-hmm. that happens when individuals who don't even know each other that
Correct.
Come together and through some common beliefs and values.
That's right.
Decide that we're not just going to be in an organization, we're going to be brothers.
That's right.
And I think what's so cool about that is is you can establish brotherhood with somebody that is not your birth.
That's not your birth brother.
Your
Right.
birth brother.
Right.
And I think that is something that men we do in certain settings, but it's something that we should do more of.
That's right.
We should be reaching out and figuring out how can we establish relationships with other men, wholesome relationships that lead to us having a bond, a connection with one another.
It's so important. I had lunch yesterday with a good friend and frat brother, Marcus. He lives in the DC area. And you know, I must admit, he's been a lot better at checking up on me than I have been with him, right? But our relationship goes back to when I was living in New Orleans and he was living in New Orleans. He was actually younger than me, and so a couple of us actually started a high school fraternity. You know Jason? Jason was in it, yep.
Jason, that's my dude.
Jason Lewis. Anyway, so we started a high school fraternity, which is kind of how we met these guys. So we were in college and we're in high school, right? But we did a lot of mentoring and working with them. One, I'm happy to say that we were talking about it yesterday. I can't think of one person in that group that hasn't gone on to do some amazing things. Marcus right now was recently working for the Federal Drug Administration, doing some work in that area. Now he's going into the private sector, doing some fantastic things. But I say all of that to say that, so he came to Raleigh-Durham area all week this week. He has some work stuff, and so he texted me, hey, we'd love to see you. And we hadn't seen each other in 20 years.
Wow.
I didn't realize how long it had been because we have texted and that kind of stuff. But my point is, I hadn't physically seen him in 20 years.
Wow.
And so when I got the text, I'm like, I look at my wife, I'm like, well, we got to go to Durham. Number one, you never met him, right? Because the last time I was with him was before I married my wife, right?
Wow.
So she never met him. And so I'm like, yeah, and then I need to reconnect. And so, man, I went there for what I thought was going to be a quick lunch. When I tell you we laughing and talking the entire afternoon, I missed all the football. I looked up and saw in Philadelphia beating the brakes off of Tennessee, and I'm like, well, what quarter is this? Like the fourth quarter. Like, what in the world? We went deep, right? And so, and I'm sorry, Antonio, I really was coming to your church yesterday, but Marcus is in town, so I'll catch you next week. But anyway, but it rekindled something, right? And so I say all of that to say that I have a group me right now, and there are guys in this group me from Rhode Island, from the chapter and some other chapters as well. And we still talk, but we haven't lived in the same city in 25 years, right? And we still talk and interact through this. We share pictures of family. And it's interesting because I have a lot of friends, a lot of brothers, not biological, but a lot of brothers who I don't see. But I know right now, if I say, I need you, they're here. I was talking to one who lives in California, and he's nephrologist, I believe, is the kidney specialist, right? Well, whatever. Point is, he don't worry about the kidneys. He works with the kidneys. And so I had a family member that had some kidney stuff, and he's like, hey, tell him call me. Right. Wow. My mom was dealing with some blood pressure issues. One of my Lion brothers runs a hospital system out in Houston, and he said, hey, she still had the same number when we were in school? That's the same number. All right, I'm gonna call and check on her, and I'll give her some advice. And so it's just a comfort level, and I don't see these guys, but we still connect.
It's just the commitment you have to one another. That's probably one of the coolest things about homecoming and other stuff like that. People you haven't seen for years, and people literally that you've known maybe in school or whatever, that if they ever found out you were in trouble and they needed you, you would respond.
That's right.
You know, brotherhood is an amazing thing, and I think that we need to make sure that we're not spending too much time competing with one another.
That's right.
And learn how to be brothers to one another.
Right.
To just, to say, okay, hey man, how you doing? What's going on?
That's right.
To be that confidant. One of the things that everybody wants to have is somebody they can tell their secret to and never have to worry about.
That's right.
When it's repeated again.
It's interesting, and this has nothing to do with Alpha Phi Alpha, but I had a friend of mine reach out to me last week, and they said, hey man, I just need to tell somebody I trust. I don't need an answer. You don't even have to respond. But this situation happened and it made me mad, and I need to be able to say it out loud and know that it's not going to get back to my wife or anybody else, right? And so we laughed about it and talked about it, and I said, you know what? I feel everything you're saying, but none of it matters because you still got to go home and make it happen.
That's right.
And so you're right. There is this world puts enough pressure on us many times we put pressure on ourselves too. We need somebody or some people that we can commune with, right? That we know, one, the information is going to stay where it is. Two, they legitimately will have our best interests in mind, right? And three, when we're wrong, they'll give us information and give us feedback in a way that doesn't tick us off, but allows us to understand what's going on. And frankly, if they need to tick us off, they'll tick us off too, right? But you know, we talk about fraternities, but that's not the only way, place, and only mechanism to get that, right? You're not an alpha, but we have. I would consider you a brother, right?
Our relationship started from an interview.
Yes,
it's the craziest thing. I went to interview for United, and you were in the interview, and literally the hire didn't happen until almost a year later.
A year later, yep.
You know, and then but I came in, and it was so cool that coming into a company, I'm in my home city, but I'm in a business where nobody really knows me, and so we just connected at work, and we become brothers since then. Our lives are completely
intertwined. Absolutely.
In so many ways. And so.
And I say things about you to some of my alpha brothers. That's the interesting part,
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, same here. Just like people in church, they'll be like, well, who is Alvin? You talk about him like in your family.
Right.
He is.
Right.
So don't be so distant as a man to not be willing to share your life with somebody else, especially if you're doing what's right.
That's right.
If you're on the up and up, there's some other young guys out there that need to understand brotherhood, need to understand relationship and how to put all that together so that we can be closer and actually care for one another.
That's right.
So, we just wanted to talk a little bit about brotherhood on today, and shout out to all the alphas for your alphaversary. Congratulations to you and to all the other Greek organizations.
And Fantasia is a Sigma Gamma Rho now. Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh yes, it's all over the Instagram.
Oh my!
Oh, she is singing and strolling and everything.
Now, side note, there's a lot of people getting away with pledging in the 21st century.
Listen, well, she's honorary, so I'm gonna just put that out there so you take that for what it's worth. But yeah, it was kind of funny. I met a lady yesterday, and I, since yesterday was the actual Founders Day, right? I had on a sweater, a different sweater. And so, but anyway, so she's an AKA, right? And so it was kind of funny. It made me chuckle because she's like, well, Ski 5 frat. And I was like, oh, where'd you pledge? She's like, well, I went grad check. And I'm like, it's okay. It's okay.
It's fine.
Listen, 20 years ago, I'd have been like, really? But I'm grown now. But I fully understand. You do it however you need to do it if that's what you're trying to do. That's right.
Because you missed a lot of wood.
You missed once, Pine Brown. Because that row iota was called the lumber yard, but I think there might be a statute of limitations on hazing, so I should probably make sure that I pass it before I start talking about it.
Yeah. We may cut that.
Yeah, let's edit that out.
It's been another edition of The Manual. He's the Professor Woods. I am Chip Rice, and y'all have a great day. We'll see you next time. Don't forget Twitter. I'm just saying
Amazon. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, those places. Look for Manual, the number 4U.
You know what we need to do? We got to get on TikTok.
We get ready to
tickety-tock.
Tickety-tock.
And ticket.
It's The Manual. We'll see you next time.